Hello, everyone. Welcome back. I am Christine Dixon of The Ordinary Sacred, and I'm going to share a couple more sample sessions, IFS sessions from Internal Family Systems Skills Training Manual by Frank Anderson, Martha Sweezy, and Richard Schwartz. And these are just some quick, short examples of a therapist dealing with a client's angry parts, because this can be really activating for our own system as a practitioner. And so these are some really helpful examples of how one might deal with that. All right, so there's a client named John, and it says, John came to a session angry with his partner and eager to talk about an argument from the night before. So John says, I'm so pissed at her. She constantly puts our son Jake in the middle of everything, forcing him to choose between us. Why doesn't she get how destructive this is? The therapist says, that sounds hard. And based on your history, I'm guessing that this dynamic is particularly challenging for you. So just validating how difficult this would be for John. John says, yes, it makes me want to kill her or kill myself. I can't decide which to do first. Okay, so this is a really big thing to say, right? And so the note says a scared part is activated in the therapist. And so in IFS, if and when this happens, we notice a part of us that feels threatened, overwhelmed by something our client says or does. We first want to turn toward that part in us and ask for space to approach the client again with curiosity and compassion. So that's what the therapist does. And the therapist says, I hear that you feel really mad. I wonder if the angry part of you would be able to separate a bit. John says, are you serious? I guess you can't handle my feelings any better than her. So this kind of makes sense to me. It's hard, especially when a part is blended with a person and they're blended. So this is the way I see it, especially when a client is blended with an angry part, a sad part, any big feeling part. They're blending with the client, with the person, because they want the person in front of them to be the self, right? They want the person in front of them to really get how distressed, how angry, how sad, how overwhelmed they are. They want the person in front of them to attune to them, right? So when the therapist says, this is a part of you, that part feels like you're not seeing me, you're not getting me, right? And they can feel resentful about that. So the therapist decides to do direct access, which is, okay, I'm then going to be the self in this therapeutic unit, and I'm going to just listen to you. So the therapist says, I think I'm talking directly to the angry part, right? So that is fine with me. I hear that you're mad because John's son is being put in the middle, just like John was with his mom and dad, right? Okay, so this is interesting. The therapist is referring to John in the third person because it's still trying to say, I'm talking directly to the part. I'm aware of that. It's okay for you to be here. I'm attuned with you. But I also want to let you know that John is there too, and that I get why you're upset. You're upset because the same thing is repeating that happened to John when he was a kid. And then John sits back in the chair and the therapist continues. If you're able to bring your intensity down just a bit, I promise that John will be able to come up with a workable solution. So again, kind of offering this hope that there is one inside. I'm here with you. And if you can dial down just a little bit and make some space, John can be with you too. John says, I know you're right. Thanks for sticking with me. So it sounds like the angry part has made room for John's self. and that sympathetic activation has come down just a little bit. The note says, this vignette illustrates the therapist's need to keep his own parts in check while helping reactive parts in the client unblend. He moves into direct access to remain self-led and available to an angry, threatening part who is not immediately willing to unblend. Staying confident and meeting the part head-on without trying to control it helps it to relax. Yeah, you can see the qualities of self in the therapist here, because there's compassion, there's validation, there's I see you, but there's also this confidence and persistence of being the hope merchant and pointing to the self in John as well, right? And still an offering of, if you unblend, we can offer you even more help. Not a forcing, you don't have to unblend, but if you do, it'll go well with you. All right, and then there's one other example that's has kind of a similar feel. This is a client named Noah. So Noah sits down and immediately begins to describe an interaction with his adolescent son over the weekend. Noah says, I was so mad at him. I really lost it. I had been very clear about the rules. When we are not home, no friends in the house without our permission, and absolutely no drinking. I got a call from the police because our neighbor reported noise coming from our house. I was beyond mad. My parent parts are like, oh yeah, that would be hard. The therapist says, I can see how upset you are as you tell the story now. So reflecting back, yeah, I can see that you're upset. Noah says, well, wouldn't you be angry? I am still so embarrassed. Ah, interesting. So the anger is protecting this part that's embarrassed, probably with the neighbor. The therapist says, of course, that would be upsetting. Let your angry part know that its response makes sense. This is one of the most common things I say to people that I work with. You make sense. Your parts make sense. They always do. They always do. I mean, this validation is so important to them, but it really is true. Even if we don't have all the puzzle pieces, eventually we'll gain them. We'll gain the insight and we'll really get how they make sense, right? But it's funny. I have my own parenting parts that are in various places around me. I have several of them that are saying, what my parts are saying is that would be a really tough situation to be in. Like my parts are empathizing with kind of the weight of being a parent, trying to steer your kids in the right direction, feeling like maybe, so this is my own parts projecting, like I've failed, right? And there's different schools of thought around opinions around how much the therapist can share of their own parts. So I might say, especially because Noah is like, well, wouldn't you be upset? Right? I might say, yes, I am noticing several of my parenting parts chiming in and saying, wow, that would be really tough. I would have all kinds of concerns and issues going on. Those parts are letting me know. So my parts are empathizing with yours. I don't need to go into detail about how my parts are burdened and what's happened in my experience with my kids or anything like that. But to just speak for my parts, yeah, my parts are chiming in that would be hard. So Noah says, I'm so glad you get it. And then the therapist says, if the angry part is willing to separate just a little bit, we'll be able to hear it even better. Noah says, you aren't afraid of my feelings? The therapist says, no, not at all. I know your feelings have important information for us. Yeah. Again, and they've repeated that in this manual. I like that understanding, right? That it's our emotional guidance system. Our emotions, just like our physical sensations, have really valuable information for us. So there's nothing to be afraid of if we actually can turn toward them with curiosity and listen to them. They're usually alerting us to unmet needs, fears, cross boundaries, confusion, different things. And so if we can listen to them, then they don't have to get bigger and bigger and bigger to either get our attention or get the attention of someone outside, right? So Noah says, no one could tolerate my feelings when I was a kid. I would never hurt anybody. I just feel things intensely. Yeah, see, I have a part relating to that, the part from a few videos ago that was told he's too sensitive and overreacts, right? Feels things intensely, yes. The therapist says, let the angry part know that its feelings are fine with us and that we want to hear all about it. The note at the end says, angry parts are particularly sensitive to rejection. Yeah, good point. And they are used to it. But as this example illustrates, they calm down and are often grateful when they are welcomed with genuine concern and interest. Yes, yes, yes. I was going to say, there's a part up here that says where the therapist says, if the angry part is willing to separate a little, sometimes I'll say, you've heard me say this before, can you be nose to nose with me? Or can you come right in front of me? Because sometimes the words separate, they feel that as a rejection of sorts, right? Can you separate? Can you get out of here a little, but when I say, can you come right in front of me? Because I want to hear from you. I want to hear everything. Tell me all about it. That's one of the biggest things. I think it does say that at the end. We want to hear all about it. That's a very common thing that I will say, especially to angry parts. Tell me all about it. And again, I'm talking about inside my own system, right? My own angry parts. I used to have parts that would completely suppress any kind of anger because they were afraid that that anger would come out and do something destructive in the outer world. But what I've learned is that the anger is really valuable information, like it says here, for me, for myself. And so when it comes up, I need to pay attention to it. It is alerting me to something really important. So I turn toward it inside and I say, tell me all about it. Vent your heart out. And I'll let it cuss, I'll let it say extreme things. I've learned now, in my other parts that used to suppress it, have learned that once it feels fully heard and validated by myself, and myself gets what the needs are that it's protecting, or maybe the vulnerable parts underneath, then myself can take that information and go forward in a constructive way in the world. Yes, the angry part, if it's not heard on the inside, may blend and go in a destructive mode on the outside. But if I hear it fully on the inside, I can take the information in a constructive way, a creative way, a confident, courageous, calm way. And so it's not either I'm out there destroying and, saying things I might regret, or I'm being a doormat. Those are not the only two options. It's let the anger come up, turn toward it, listen to it fully, take the valuable information, go out into the world in a constructive way that sets healthy boundaries without angst, right? Says no when, the capacities are being overdrawn. And it doesn't have to be in a no way, just a nope, an open-hearted no. All right, so I hope those were helpful. Again, whether you're working with a client who displays anger that might feel threatening to your own system, or you are working with anger within your own system. So if you have any questions or any comments, please feel free to leave them in the comments below.